All right, I'm gonna mute and let this get started, but Stephanie, Sabrina, I suggest we wait a few more minutes considering that, I don't know, it's daylight savings or something like that, who knows? The witching hour, it's a sunny afternoon, so people are out there experiencing the crisp spring air
That's right. They have other things to do.
with other things to do than sit on a meeting. Uh, we have 12 people, that includes several board members, so we should give the community a few minutes to assemble. I'm just gonna mute, but you can call out if you want me.
How you doing, Lucy?
Well, that wonderful spring air killed my magnolias, so I'm very upset.
I know it got cold. All my
We haven't
daffodils.
had them for, this is the third year that they've been hit, and it's distressing, right along with the Hayes Eagles. It's been a rough week.
What happened with the Eagles?
I think something attacked her nest and the egg was damaged,
Oh no.
so it's no longer viable. She just had one this year.
Lucy, do you think will she lay another egg? Is it too late for her to do another one?
I think it's too late. Yeah.
Oh,
She's had, I think she had two or three. I think she had two last year, three the year before. She's had three at least twice.
yeah, she's a really good mom.
Yeah.
Aw.
You know, the other possible reason for the low turnout is that we're in spring break week for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know my neighbor Lori is on the children's committee and they just left today to drive down to North Carolina. They're going to Asheville though, Andrea, the other side of the state.
You know what? Judy's sister lives about halfway between east and west, and I'll tell you what, the whole state is beautiful. The Smoky Mountains are great also, so I hope they have a good time. I'm sure they will. They're not camping, are they?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Yeah.
Hi, Art. I can see you peeking in at Howard's computer.
That-
Everyone get their brackets in. It was a lot of work.
Well, I don't need her to see that.
I didn't do on this year. Randy, I don't see you. Are you LinkedIn?
Randy is not in the meeting.
He's eavesdropping from the other room.
Oh, okay.
I know it's been a bit, but how was Italy?
Amazing. Yeah,
You were around in Bologna?
I was, yeah. So for folks
Nice.
that don't know, my husband is a professor at Pitt and had sabbatical in the fall, and we spent it in Italy. He was at the University of Bologna, and I was working remotely, and Oh, so now I just can't wait to go back.
Yeah, it's fabulous. It's all fabulous.
Yeah. Do you speak Italian, Lucy?
Not at all. My parents were both born in Italy, but my father just went to school for I don't even know how many grades. And as a result, he'd never learned Italian, but he knew his dialect.
Mm-hmm.
So when he met my mom, of course they spoke English, but she learned his dialect so they could communicate that way. But she also had an entirely separate dialogue. So it was interesting.
Yeah.
And
Italian is fascinating that way.
yeah, and it's I think I did take a semester of Italian at one point, but yeah, I've never really put my mind to it. So
Yeah. My great grandparents immigrated. But the family was very much of the mindset like we are Americans now. We're leaving poverty behind and
exactly.
yeah. So the great grandparents only spoke Italian, but nobody
Yeah,
else
yeah.
spoke it.
What region were they from?
Sort of between Rome and Naples.
Okay.
Yeah, we actually visited there when we were in Italy to try to get my great grandparents' birth certificates, and that was a very cool experience.
Oh wow, that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, we should probably get started. It looks like it's just going to be a small turnout, and
Okay.
so mostly I have some announcements, and I don't. Do you have someone from Zone 5?
Oh, yes, Lieutenant Cunningham, I'm here. Let's see if
Hi,
my
Lieutenant. Thanks for
video
joining
will
us.
work.
I will hand it off to you to start.
Oh, okay, thank you. So I was finally able to get our new computer system to start cooperating. So I was able to get some updates for the reports that we took over last month. We took 3 assault calls. We had 4 thefts, one of a motor vehicle and 2 retail thefts, and we took 1 burglary report over the last month. So all in all, not too bad on the report front for the last 30 days. We're looking good. So last month when we talked, I'd said that I would get updates on with the sector assignments and the officers that are assigned to. So looking at daylight, we have 4 officers that are assigned to Sector 3, which covers the Highland Park, Lincoln, Leamington, and Larmer areas. And then on the PM shift, we have a total of 8 officers assigned to those sectors. So with the platoon systems, the way we have it worked up with the past days, on the PM, there'll be 4 on one set of past days, 4 on another. And on Wednesdays, when everybody's out, we'll have all 8 officers for those neighborhoods. We're looking, I do have some QR codes that I could send you with the dashboards on what we're doing from the crime mapping and whatnot to have current up to date. I looked today and I was going to send them to you. For some reason, they haven't updated and they're about 2-3 months out of date. So I'm going to get with our Intel folks and see when those are being updated so I could send it to you. I didn't want to send you something that was going to be outdated or not show any information at all, because that would be more frustrating than anything else. So as soon as I can get those working, I'll definitely get those sent over to you.
Great.
So just any questions for from the group?
So is the idea behind the new model that this relatively small group of officers sort of build relationships with the communities they're assigned to?
Correct. So the officers are still going to be able to move depending on the priority of the calls. Obviously, we're going to send more officers to the areas to be able to respond to the calls. This is just looking for when we have more of our downtime, more time where we're not answering calls, they'll be able to actually get out, walk the beats in areas, get in, meet people at the parks or in the business districts, or just moving along. If we see something and there's a block party or something, this will afford them some more of an opportunity to actually get out and interact. And the theory behind it is we're not just people in cars that are riding by and waving. We're actually going to be able to get out and meet. And then, byproduct of that is you'll get to know who should be in the areas, who's not, what stands out, what doesn't, things like that.
Well, that's great. And if over time they want to join these meetings, even just to pop in and say hi so we can see their faces, that would be awesome. We also, the last several years, our May Thursday night meeting, community meeting, we've done at the Parklet on Bryan Street. Sort of as a social, people are finally able to get out of their house and the weather's
Sure.
nicer and be in person. So that might be an opportunity for them to come by. And then in June, at the end of the month, the 27th, I want to say, is the fourth Thursday. We have a neighborhood picnic down at the rhododendron shelter. So I will send you that information as we get closer, but that,
Yeah.
just for both sides to know, you'll have some opportunities to meet the officers that will be working more closely in our neighborhoods.
Sure, that'd be great. I'll make sure we get it on the calendars and let the officers know so that they can try and make arrangements to be there.
Great. Does anyone else have questions for Lieutenant Cunningham? All right. Well, thank
right,
you
well-
so much for joining us.
Appreciate it. Thanks. And if anybody needs anything, they can always call down to Zone 5 and ask for me.
Oh, I do have a quick question, actually,
Sure.
while I have you here. I did field a complaint from someone on Highland Ave about
Okay.
like construction type vehicles that were being parked there all the time. Lucy, do you know anything about this? I think this was down near you. Oh, you're on mute, Lucy.
I think it's closer to Bryant, maybe. The guy that lives in the house with a slanted roof, kind of contemporary house. I think those are his snow removal vehicles. I think it's a little bit further up from me.
Yeah,
Okay.
it wasn't clear if it was illegal or improper, but someone did have a question for me about what can be done about vehicles that have been left for a long time. So I don't know if they still just call Zone 5 or what's the procedure for that.
Sure. So they can call down and talk to us down there. We could take a look and we can have our traffic division go up and take a look. There are city ordinances about parking commercial vehicles in residential areas.
Mhm.
And depending on what the type of vehicle is, now this sounds like it's more of personal snow removal type things. So it's not something that they would necessarily have asked for a
Mhm.
variance, like if they're replacing a driveway or something like that. Those usually get special permits to park and stay in an area, but
Mhm.
it's definitely something that we can take a look at. And yeah, you can give a call down to Zone 5, or you can, if it's something that you feel like, hey, you just want to give us a heads up, you can shoot me an email on it and we can follow up. Or there's always the 311 system. And when those calls come in, they actually try to, from there, look at whether it's more for us or if they would divert it over to traffic or down to permits, licensing, and inspection for something like that. So,
Okay.
multiple different ways that they can let us know about it.
Okay, super. Thanks so much.
Sure.
Hey, wait a second. Don't let him go yet.
Uh-oh, I'm out. Bye.
Yeah, that particular equipment it's actually Highland at Hampton, and honestly, Lieutenant, I actually called 311 about that, even though the guy who lives in the slanted roof house is always friendly when I pass by and whatever. He had it parked right on the corner, and
Okay.
there was a car driving south on Highland. As I was walking south and crossing that intersection, had he not been alert, he actually would have taken me out. The vehicle was parked so close to the corner, which leads me to my second question. It would be really helpful, I think, if traffic division has the time and inclination to really start looking at these vehicles parked right on the corner. There's no visibility for drivers or pedestrians. People park right up, 5 feet from the corner. That's not consistent with Pennsylvania regs, let alone what's reasonable in a city. So
Correct.
I appreciate whatever you could do about that, because that situation, I've heard several neighbors complaining about that particular equipment on Highland, and it just doesn't seem quite sensible to have that creating a hazard, really, for pedestrians, bicyclists, other motorists. So, yeah. Thank
Sure.
you.
Yep, we can definitely go up and check on that.
All right, anything else? All right, well, thank you, Lieutenant Cunningham.
Sure thing. Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye. All right, I have a handful of updates from HPCC before we move to our guests for tonight. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Stephanie Walsh. I'm the president of the Neighborhood Association. We have some other board members with us tonight as well. Judy and Howard and Sabrina and Becky. First up, I want to say thank you to two people that are on this call. David Anglero is here. He played Good Samaritan. He emailed us when he tripped over some I don't even know how to describe what it is, a piece of metal, so scrap that had been at the parklet. So if you know the parklet on Bryan and North Euclid that the HPCC maintains, years ago there was a house there that burned down, and eventually the site got clean, but there's still a lot of debris in the ground. And so a piece of metal piping had sort of made its way up, as the soil subsides, and was potentially a tripping hazard. Well, definitely a tripping hazard. And David alerted us to it and also offered to remove it. So he went down with another volunteer of ours, Andrea Mudd, who's on our parklet committee and donates, I don't know, countless hours to taking care of that lovely little parklet, and took out that tripping hazard. So thank you, David, and thank you, Andrea, for being good Samaritans and helping us with our parklet. I also wanted to give an update about the Children's Committee. Some of you might know they had their first annual spring gathering last Saturday, and the coordinators are on spring break right now, but they sent me a message. It said that the event was, it was a gorgeous day. They had close to 60 kids, and actually I'm going to share my screen because I have pictures from the event. Oh, no, I can't. Howard, if you can let me share my screen. It said I could share it, and then it
Coming
didn't
up.
let me.
Coming up.
Here we go. There we go. So they had close to 60 children and their families, and they played games in the yard. They danced in bubbles and did hopscotch and created butterflies and rainbows downstairs in the hall. And the purpose of the event and all the events that the Children's Committee runs is to bring neighbors together for people to sort of enjoy different corners of the neighborhood. So this is, and we also want to send an extended thank you to St. Andrews for letting us use their space. And also to Lori Sloan and Elisa Lupke, who are the two coordinators of the Children's Committee. So here's some pictures. This is some down in the basement where they were doing some crafts. Next month, the Children's Committee is organizing an Earth Day event. This is going to be their second or third annual Earth Day event. The date is April 20th. It'll be from 10 to 2 at the Super Playground, and they'll have earth-friendly crafts and snacks, educational activities about native plants and wildlife in Highland Park, and also a visit from Mad Science and Dada Creative Play, which is being sponsored by Highland Park's children's store, Periwinkle Fox. And just as a reminder to everyone, the Children's Committee is one of HPC's committees. It is all volunteers, funded mostly by member donations, and also they solicit donations at different events. They are very excited. They have sort of gotten a lot of new momentum. The Children's Committee, they have some new volunteers this year, and they are going to plan on continuing to do at least one activity every month. So keep posted. We'll post those on the listserv and on the Facebook page. And if you have ideas, I'm going to put in the chat our volunteer email address. And so I have a bunch of calls for volunteers. If you are interested, you can email Becky, who's our volunteer coordinator, and she will connect you to the right person. One other call, our Children's Committee are looking for a cooler. They have one that someone donated. They'd really like to get a second one, sort of like this. It doesn't have to be exactly like this, but they'd love to have something that can take both hot and cold drinks, so that way they can just bring things to the events and cut down on things like bottles and cans and juice boxes and stuff like that. So if you have one of these sitting in your basement getting dusty, please shoot us a note. We'd be happy to come by and take it off your hands and put it to good use. Okay, and now I don't know how to stop sharing my screen because things have changed on my computer. Let's see. All right. Well, Howard, maybe you can have me stop sharing because I cannot shut off sharing apparently. We have some other upcoming events that I wanted people to know about. On May 5th will be the marathon party. Most likely, this is something that is organized every year by Jessica Ackery, who lives in the neighborhood. She is awesome. She gets a grant from the organizers of the marathon. They do these grants for neighborhoods to do entertainment and so forth. And she always takes care of it and organizes the music and the food and so forth and so on. So let's see, there we go, stop share. So Jessica is like a one-woman show. She does a great job, and the marathon will be on May 5th. And so hopefully we'll get the grant again, and that will be happening. The next big event, there'll be a Parkland cleanup in May. I don't know the date off the top of my head. If you're interested in helping with the
It's Stephanie, the 18th.
The 18th of May. There'll be a parklet cleanup in the morning. So that's something that you can, again, pay attention to and come on down for that. And then sort of the two big events at the beginning of June that people wait for, and I've already been emailing me about what's going to happen, is the yard sale and the Bryant Street Festival. And so I have Jason here. Jason's one of our board members, and he is our yard sale coordinator. So he was going to talk for a minute just about what he needs for volunteers in case there's anyone here that wants to sign up to volunteer. So Jason, are you still out there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, everyone. Howard, wonderful, wonderful cooler. Thank you for showing everyone the cooler. The yard sale's happening early June 2nd this year. And in the couple of months leading up to it, we have a lot of work to be done. So one of the things that we do every year to make sure that all the yard salers understand which houses are selling is we pass out signs. So every year people sign up to be a house, and then we go out and pass out yard signs to them, which the first year I did it was about 70 houses. That was manageable. I had one person helping me. Last year, we doubled that number. We had about 130 houses. And so that became almost like a second job that I had in the evening. So that is probably the biggest source of volunteer help that I need. We love to have people who sort of live in different parts of the neighborhood, just give them a few of those signs, and as people sign up, they could just, on an evening walk, just drop off those signs to their porches. And then on the day of, we have a couple of other needs. One is just to help people understand where the houses are, what's going on. You can hand out paper maps, which we're still debating whether or not we'll keep paper maps this year, but I think we will. They're very useful. Or direct people to scanning the QR code on the signs. And then the last bit is the flea market. So every year on the first section of Bryant Street, when you enter from Highland, there are about a dozen or more neighbors selling stuff as part of the flea market. I'd love to have someone help me make sure everyone's getting their own tables, make sure they're all set up in their places. It becomes a little bit of a traffic jam as people try to set up in the morning. So those are the three big areas that I could use help. We'll take anyone, and it'll be happening. I'll probably work with HPCC website folks to put up the sign-up sheet probably in the next 4 or 5 weeks here. So we'll make sure that the people who sign up have plenty of time to do so. That means we have plenty of time to hand out those signs.
Great. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
And Jason was up all night anyway because he had a brand new baby last year. So you weren't getting any sleep anyway.
That's true. Yeah. We were doing a lot of walking that baby to sleep. Yeah.
So, Awesome. As you all know, the same day of the art sale is the Bryan Street Festival, and Justin Bagat, who is our coordinator, sort of taking over for Bob Starsinik, who's done it for a very lot of years and now is sort of scaling back and going to focus on some other things. Justin had a work event tonight, so he wanted me to let you know that this year we're planning on bringing in some bigger bands and more food trucks. We really want to put an emphasis on the food trucks because we know that's sort of a fun thing, a fun way to get people to come down to Bryan Street and make sort of the event more of like a lunch and music destination. Although there'll still be one end of the street for flea market and vendor tables. He is looking for volunteers right now who might be interested in helping recruiting the bands and coordinating the bands and the food trucks. He's got some lined up, but he just needs a couple more of each. So again, if you're a music buff or food buff and that sounds like fun to you, this is something you could definitely help out with. So I put in the chat our volunteer email address. So again, just you can email that and say what you're interested in. If it's the yard sale, the Bryan Street Festival, the Children's Committee. The other event I mentioned earlier is the Hullabaloo. That will be at the end of June on the 27th down at the Rhododendron Shelter. This is maybe our third or fourth year down there. It's a really fun event, but it does take a lot of work. And we need people to help ahead of time with some planning around food and decorations and activities and people, partners to bring in, sponsors. We also need people day of to help with cleanup and setup and working in our kitchen area. So definitely, if you're interested, if you love that event, email our volunteer coordinator. Even if we just get folks to volunteer for an hour, that gives you plenty of time to sort of sit back and enjoy the event as well. So again, we can only do what we do with the help of volunteers, and so please sign up today. My last announcement is has to do with the bicycles, the city bikes. So this is not HPCC, but you probably all are aware of the Pogo bike stations, POGO, across the city. I got an email from them just today saying that they recently celebrated 1 million rides, and they are announced that they're going to open over 50 new stations next year in 2025. So right now, this year, they're getting feedback from people on the proposed locations of these new sites. And they have 3 proposed locations in Highland Park. And those are at the intersection of Stanton and Nagley. So that'd be down like by the Union Project, Highland Ave and Reservoir Drive. So that's up at the entrance of the park, and Euclid and Bryan Street, which is by the parklet that we were just talking about. And I invited them to come to the next community meeting in April, but this literally just happened today, so I'm not sure if they're going to be able to make it to that meeting or not. In the meantime, I'm going to put in the chat where you can look at the map of what they're proposing and provide feedback. And the map is a little interesting. You'll see there are dots at all the proposed locations, and you can give feedback on each individual location. So if you want to give feedback on the one at the park entrance, you click on the park entrance and say, yes, this is great, or no, or whatever your feedback is. But they don't have just like a place to click and just give blanket feedback. But if you do just want to give blanket feedback, there's an email address. So I put the link to this interactive map, and I also put the email address for just providing general feedback into the chat as well. And again, I just got this today, but I'll be posting it on the listserv and on our Facebook page as well. And they also, again, hopefully they'll be coming to our next meeting. And then so any questions about any of this stuff so far? We just went through a whole bunch, and I don't even know if I took a breath. So just to respond to Tina's message in the chat, we have this really robust children's committee, and it's been a really good model and has enabled us to do a lot more programming. And so we're trying to sort of rejigger sort of how we manage our committees. And we haven't had a parks committee in a long time. Just this the way things work sometimes. It seems really obvious that we should have one, and we want to restart one. So our board had a delay in when we could meet, so we're meeting again next week, and we're going to sort of jumpstart our committees. And so we definitely are looking for people to join all of our committees. So if you have an interest in parks, events, the children's committees, those are some of the big ones. Public safety is another one. Communications and membership is a really fun one. We definitely need volunteers, looking for folks that are looking for, ways to give back to the community, ways to meet people, maybe apply your talents or develop new skills. There's always lots of opportunities. So if you're interested in, joining our organization in that capacity, that would be great. Also in June, we have some turnover of board members. And so we do need new board members. And so if you're interested in joining the board, it is just a really wonderful opportunity. I think you make amazing friends, because if people are on the board, it's because they have big hearts and love their neighborhood as much as I do and you do. So it's a super way to engage with people in your neighborhood. So that is another reason. Again, if you're interested, you can mail either the volunteer website. You can also always HPCC. I'm putting it in the chat. This is the general Highland Park Community Council email address if you're interested in joining the board. HPCCPH. Yeah, so we hope that you will consider taking a more active role. And that's it. That's it for now. The Stephanie show is over. And now it's my pleasure to hand things over to Bram Pert. Bram Pert is our park ranger. He is park ranger for Highland Park and Mellon Park. And sadly, and I'm kind of embarrassed to say this, Bram, I don't even know which department you're housed in. City Parks or Public Works. You can tell us all about this, because we would love to know more. So with that, I'm going to let you take the stage and the microphone.
Yeah, hi, thanks, Stephanie. Bram Peart, but everybody messes up my last name. Thanks for getting my first name right. So we're public safety. We used to be Parks and Rec, but we moved to public safety mainly because they had more money. And we could actually get some funds and everything and get uniforms, which we didn't have when we first started. But just an overview of just the Pittsburgh Park Rangers. Basically, we started in June 2015. So we're about to turn up 9 years. I've been a park ranger for 6 years, which makes me one of the older people at 32 years old. Yeah, so we basically do 4 things. We patrol the parks, so just enforce all the ordinances in the parks and keep people safe. And then we also are first responders, so we respond to any emergency in the park. Really, our job is to usually get police and EMS where they need to go, because a lot of times they're really unfamiliar with the park. One of my favorite ones when I used to work at Frick Park was we had a EMS on a motorcycle, and he went down like a single track trail and got stuck, and and they weigh like 500 pounds on motorcycles. So it ended up being an emergency to get him out, and on top of the guy that broke his leg on a bike. So it was like a whole ordeal. So we really kind of coordinate with them to try to get them there safely so they can do their job. The third part that we do is we do a lot of service events. So that's usually something tree related, whether we're planting trees, just taking care of them, watering, mulching, weeding. And then, because we usually, if we plant a tree, we have to, right now, our contract is like, we have to take care of them for like 3 to 5 years, depending on how fast they grow. And then we also, the fun part is we do educational programming, which Stephanie already talked about. A lot of you guys' program that you do. So we do a lot of the same stuff, a lot of kid activities, a lot of adults. We really do anywhere, any age, all the way up to senior centers. We still go into, and they like birding stuff, so we go into that. But each park is a little different. Highland Park is more kid oriented, which I'm happy about, because I have a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old, so that's right up my alley. But they're like Riverview Park is more for adults. So each program, we try to put the park rangers in kind of what they're comfortable with, so they're better at programming if they like it. But there's not too many of us. We're about to hire 4 part-timers, so we only have full-time and part-time. And yeah, I think there'll be up to 17 of us. So there's only 13, but in 2 weeks, April 1st, we'll have 17 of us. And that will be an all-time high, I believe. So there's not many of us, and there's 176 parks, parklets, and green spaces, which we all are apparently just calling parks these days. But so lots to cover. We mainly stick in rad parks. We get a lot of our money from public safety, but a lot of our positions are from rad, ARAD, rad, whatever you want to call it. But they give us a lot of our funding for our actual positions. They actually give us, I think it's 15 or 16, 15.6 of our positions, however that works out, is just funded by them. So that's why the majority of our time, even though we go into parklets and everything, the majority of our time is spent in Riverview, Emerald View, Frick, Highland, and Mellon Park. So most of them are in the 5 big parks. But yeah, so yeah, Stephanie and I connected because I'm having an Easter egg hunt on this Saturday, actually. So in a couple days. That'll be that's usually our biggest event of the year because it's probably gonna have about 400 people at the super playground. It's like 200 and some kids. But we do, and we'll have like tabling activities and everything. I've created like 30 different tabling activities. So we do a bunch. I get bored easily, so I'm always creating them. But that's our other big one in Highland Park. I do tabling Thursday. So before school's out, which it starts in April, it's 4:30 to 6, and we just do a little kids activity, whether that's like lava lamps, coffee filter butterflies, just an art break. We have, like I said, there's a ton of them. And we do that every Thursday. And then when school's out, it's in the morning, 10 to 12, because we get better attendance all the way to the end of October. So it's a pretty long time doing every Thursday. Frick does the same thing, but on Tuesday. Tabling Tuesday, tabling Thursday kind of theme there. But yeah, all the parks do different things. Guided hikes, we do the normal park ranger stuff, but we're always looking for different programming and everything. And we also partner a lot with like city parks, PPC, and everything. Yeah, Stephanie, you talked about a couple things. We'd be happy to join up and do an activity at any of those if you're looking for it. Yeah, just email me. We're pretty much always doing stuff earlier the better because we're pretty much packed, especially most people think our busy season's in the summer, and we get way more people in the spring and the fall. That's our more active time for us doing events and everything. Kind of threw all that out there really quickly. Sorry, you're on mute.
When you do the tabling Thursday, where do you set up?
So good question. So every other Thursday we go from the farmhouse playground, and then we switch over the next Thursday to the super playground.
Yeah, I will definitely connect you with our children's committee because I'm sure they would love to have you at their Earth Day event that I was talking about.
Yeah, we have 2 Earth Day events going on. I'm at the Mellon one, but I think you said 10 to 2, and I think the Mellon one, I can't remember what time it is, but we might be able to work something, or I can send somebody else there. I work with, I should have mentioned this, my partner in crime at Highland is Samantha, but she just goes by Sam. So it's a Sam and Bram duo.
Yes.
But she can always help out with that one if I'm at the Mellon one.
Great.
So Bram, do you all work on the weekends, or do you work? Why I ask is, we're a partner with the city with the Reservoir of Jazz in August and in September. And a couple times when I was working up there at our table, at the community council table, there were accidents or reasons to call or to get in touch with EMS, and nobody seemed to know, including the parks people, not you, all, but you know, the city people, what to do other than to call 911, which is what we did. But my question is, do you work on the weekends, the park, in your capacity or not?
Yeah, we work on the weekends. I normally take Sunday. I think Reservoir Jazz is on Saturday.
Sundays, yeah.
So yeah, honestly too, we can get in touch and I can try to have somebody there as well. In case anything happens, we can just be in the area. I can give you Sam and my email and everything and phone number. So if we're not exactly in the email, you can get a hold of us and we'll get that next step going.
That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, Reservoir Jazz is actually Sundays at 5 in
Okay.
August.
Yeah. So that's a big reason why that's late. Normally if I'm working on on the weekdays I work around until 6. But yeah, Sunday I'm out pretty early just because I always have something to do on the weekends. So I'm an early bird too. So I get up at like 5. So I'm definitely out early to get my shift done.
It would be good PR to be at the Reservoir of Jazz.
Yeah, I've been to a couple, but it's been a couple years.
Great. Do
Anyone else
folks-
have any questions? Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to ask if people have more questions.
The archery program is always a hot topic if you guys want to talk about that.
I don't know anything about the archery program. What can you tell us?
more. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, the archery program launched last year, and we did Frick Park and Riverview mainly because they have the least amount of roads intersecting their parks, and also they had the biggest deer problems. I'm not allowed, if I had a PowerPoint, I wouldn't be able to say this, but apparently verbal's okay. I don't know how that makes sense. You guys can write the numbers down. But we ended up getting 108 deer harvested between those two parks. About 2/3 of them were in Frick Park. And I will say that you can't even notice that we took out like 70 deer in Frick Park. So still a lot more deer. But everything went well. We didn't have any accidents or anything. I know a lot of people feared that with people, dogs, everything like that. We always, during those months, encourage people to wear orange. But really in all of PA, there hasn't been an accident in archery in like 16 years. It's been a very long time. But we also take as many precautions as we possibly can with them going through all these tests and everything, which about 50% of people have failed. So it's not a simple test with a crossbow. But yeah, so we're going to go forward. The plans next year is to get it actually in all 5 rad parks. Each one will be a little bit different, and they're not going to be getting as many in frickin' Riverview. But that's the plan going forward. There's a lot, like especially Highland Park, because we have the reservoir. I would say probably 50% of Highland Park isn't even an option for the hunting zones. So there was 10 hunting zones in Frick. So Highland will just only have 5 hunting zones, and they'll be a lot smaller. But just in the wooded areas where people aren't usually at. And then hunters, you're usually more in the morning. And so there's a lot of times, dawn and dusk. So a lot of times people aren't on that on the trails at that time, regardless. And Highland Park usually gets the majority of their people up at Carnegie Lake and Reservoir. So I don't see it being an issue. But anyone have any questions about that?
I do. Do you have to be a city resident?
So you don't have to be a city resident, though they do get priority. So we only opened it up for like 2 days last year, and I think we had like 226 applicants. And so we just shut it down because we had so many applicants. We were only looking for 30. But yeah, so anyone in the city gets preference, and then but you do have to be in Allegheny County, and so we move out after that. Yep.
And do we have a big deer problem in Highland Park?
So yeah, like a lot of people don't realize how few deer are actually supposed to be in a certain area. I think even myself have gotten so used to seeing so many deer that we forget what the actual acreage to deer is. But to give you an example, Frick Park is 644 acres, and there should be approximately about 30 deer in all of Frick. I've seen 20 deer at once in Frick Park. Riverview is not that bad, where Frick is probably 10 times the number of deer that they're supposed to have. I would say probably Highlands, probably at least cut in half of that. So they're not as bad. But they also cross over Washington Boulevard, where the school is up top, and also Army Reserve is up there with that wood. So they're always crossing. Vehicular accidents have gone up every single year. It's crazy. I wish I would have those stats on, but basically, like just 5 years ago, we had about, I think it was around 300 accidents involving deer that PennDOT had to record, and this last year was almost 600. And it's been going up 50 to 100 accidents every year.
Is that in the city?
Yes, that's it, only in the city. Yes.
And there's a reason we're shooting the deer, not the drivers.
Yeah, so yeah, we're getting rid of the deer. Yeah, the biggest thing is if you've ever walked through any of our parks, we almost have zero understory left. There's no vegetation. And also we've been dealing with Pittsburgh doesn't have too many diseases with deer besides like Lyme disease, which they're carrying, but we've been seeing an increase of diseases and just running rampant through the deer population because there's too many of them. Anyone else?
Are there other approaches besides culling?
Yeah, so we looked at all those. There's a bunch. There's trapping, and we really ruled that out quite quickly. It's unbelievably expensive. And also the mortality rate is like crazy high. It's like 30% or something from the mortality rate, because while you're trapping, you break legs. And there was no rehabbing a deer, so they immediately they euthanized the deer at that point. So a lot anyways die. And then a lot of people talk about birth control and everything. One, it's expensive putting in the streams. You put in their drinking water. It's really difficult to get at least 70% of the population, and that's always the goal, to drink some of the water that has the birth control in it. And just like people taking birth control, we have to keep doing that, and that the cost just keeps adding up. And on top of all that, it's illegal in Pennsylvania. So
I guess
but
what I really meant was in addition to the culling, because it sounds like culling is just scratching the surface of the problem.
yeah, and it is. And usually what happens is people move to sharpshooting. I don't know if that will happen in our park. You have to have at least one successful year of the archery program like we did before you can get professional hunters to come in and take out a bunch. Honestly, it's sad to say, it's great. I love the archery program. We donated so much meat, all the food banks and everything. We did harvest, deer harvest, but it's really basically this taking out 108 deer. It just keeps our population where it's at right now. It doesn't make it better. That's how many deer there are, because deer actually populate. They double every like 1 to 2 years. So if we had 300 deer in Frick, in 2 years, their exponential would be like 600 deer in 2 years. Yeah, David, do you have a question?
Yeah, sorry, I had to get on unmute. I might not be able to take my hand down either.
That's all right.
Is there I may have missed this. Is there a charge to be one of the in the group, to be like one of the hunters?
No, it's free. I think tags right now run $7. You get 6 at a time, and once you use your 6, you can get 6 more as long as Allegheny County still has tags left. And you can go that up as far as you want. I mean, we had one guy in Frick Park, I think he took 17 or 18 deer himself.
So I'm not a hunter. I don't think I can handle it. But I do have family that does it. But if you have, and this is also probably a controversial thing as well, but you know, I'll just toss it out there. Kind of like in wild game hunting, you know, if there is like a fee to be, if you have that many people wanting to be a part of it, versus only like 30 spots, have you thought of doing like a fee to be to participate, to raise money for other efforts?
We haven't talked about a fee. That's above my pay grade. That we do suggest things. One of my ideas, because I thought the same thing. We had so many people keep volunteering to kind of cycle through. Is if we had 10 hunters, some of our hunters only got 1 to 2 deer. That's all they wanted, which is fine. You had to donate the first deer. I should have started out with that. There was no choice. You had to donate the first deer. And then the second year you were allowed to take. The guy like took 17. I think he donated 16 of them, which is great. That's what we want, and he'll be invited back next year. But I wanted to, if you were only taking 1 or 2 deer, take your 1 or 2 deer, let us know, and we can get another hunter in. I like the fee if we could, you know, I'm fine with that. I don't know if they would be fine with that. Because they're already paying the $7, which isn't a lot, but like the one guy spent almost $200, yeah, like $150 just on tags, but it's just all, I don't know. It just matters, I guess, how much that fee would be. Anyone else?
Yeah, it's just a thought.
Yeah, I'm all for thoughts. We've got a lot of them. Half of mine get shut down. That's all right.
Well, realistically, Bram, when Frick was having the culling going on, people were not using that park for really several months. And which I appreciated that the city, maybe your office, really put out tons of banners when the hunting would be taking place and so forth. And I'll tell you what, I mean, yeah, even like I don't want to be even farther than 50 yards from somebody with a crossbow. Yeah, when they're hunting. So I can tell you that it's really shutting down the park, especially something like this going on in Highland Park, because as you know, we have a lot of little goat paths that people walk their dogs on and so forth. But I also will say I appreciated the very high quality, high caliber vetting that went on with your hunters. So that's all.
I would say there's like 2 train of thoughts that I go back and forth on. One is just completely shut down the park for a week, because that was a thought that we had. Completely shut down for a week, have the hunters come in all hours, have a bunch of hunters come in, more than the 15 that were allotted to Frick this year, and get as many as we could. And then the other train of thought was the one that we went with, is expanding that amount of time. I mean, a lot of times, I mean, you said like people weren't going in the park, but I mean, we still saw a bunch of people in the park, obviously, but a ton of people go to Frick. But also it was, a lot of times there wasn't any hunter in Frick Park for the majority of the time, because such a season was long that, especially in December, I really winded down, especially with the holidays. That a lot of time, like we only got there is a break there too, but we only got a couple deer harvested. People have to log in and out, so we see that. And most of the time, honestly, there's not a hunter there. And that was mainly our objective. Of course, the public does not know that at times. And then the other thing I'll say is that most crossbow, even though the max is the 50 feet, most crossbow wait till they're a lot closer, because they need a clean shot. It's a lot harder than a gun. And then also they have to be in a tree stand and they're pointing down. And so it's very close. Unless you're walking under the tree stand, there's really no risk whatsoever. They're usually like about 20 feet away from that tree. So you'd probably see the archer already. But that's all I can tell you.
I actually did see an archer on the ground in Frick. And the other thing, just finally to keep in mind, if you will, is, as you know, Frick Park is a whole lot bigger than our little Highland Park. So anyway, more to come, I'm sure.
No, I'm with you. I have my reservations about Highland as well. So yes, it's a lot different park.
So Bram, do you know what, when is it possible it would come to Highland Park, and what would be the process for letting community members and park users know about it?
Yeah, so actually just this week, I just to pretty much bring it in front of the USDA and community members and see if it would pass. We still have to bring it in front of council and everything, just like we did last time. To expand it, they have to approve just frickin' Riverview again as well. But yeah, just this week, just in preparation of that, I mapped out everywhere where there would be signs. There's about 25 no hunting signs up in Highland Park. And then also I did the 5 zones. I created those for Highland Park. So we would be shooting for the same thing in the fall next year for hopefully for the Highland to start.
And is there a public engagement process? Like if, I don't know, if park users think that it's not such a good idea, is there an opportunity for people to give feedback, or is that ship sailed?
No, there should be with some meetings and everything as we get closer. Right now, we have to get a little bit closer to hopefully things start popping up and getting on our radar. Nothing yet for us.
Okay, well, just keep us posted. We are always happy to facilitate public meetings. We've done it for PWSA and the in Port Authority, or whoever they are now, Pittsburgh Regional Transit, and other city entities that have projects in the neighborhood and in the parks. So we're happy to host meetings.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for having me. I'd be fine with joining another one, even if we did every 3 months or whatever. Yeah, my only issue is the time is 7, but my wife is putting down my kids by herself. But besides that, I mean, I'm used to the meetings being 6 or 7, so it just sucks.
All right. Well, any last questions? We usually try to wrap up by 8, so we're sort of at the top of the hour.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much for joining us and for taking care of our park and our park users. Yeah, hope we'll see you out there more.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
And have a great night, everybody. Bye-bye.